Assalamu alaikum dear students, welcome to your channel The Anatomy Canvas. In today's class of Neuroanatomy, we are going to discuss with the white matter of the spinal cord. So the learning objective for today's class are to describe the white matter of the spinal cord and to discuss the dorsal column medial lemniscal system. So first of all, what is a tract and what is a funiculus and what is the difference between two? So the fibers subserving related functions are those having common origin and destinations are generally grouped together anatomically to form tracts or fasciculi. So this is the definition of the tract or the fasciculi, that they have common function, they have common origin and they have common destination. In addition to this, the longest white matter tracts in central nervous systems are the funiculi of the spinal cord, which contain over 1 million axons, and largest of these funiculi is being the dorsal column or dorsal funiculus. So in a column there may be multiple tracts, different tracts, either may be ascending or descending, they may be present in a funiculus, but in case of the fasciculus or tract, the fibers are having the same origin, the same function and same destination. So this, please memorize, this is the difference between the two. Next, we have the three different types of the tracts in the spinal cord. These are ascending tracts. They carry primary afferent fibers that enter the cord via dorsal root of the spinal nerves, or fibers derived from the intrinsic spinal neurons that carry afferent impulses to supraspinal levels. So these are different ascending tracts. Then we have descending tracts. These contain fiber from the cerebral cortex or the brainstem, nuclei to control the activity of the spinal neurons. Then we have the propriospinal tracts. They contain axons of the neurons that are localized entirely to the spinal cord. They modulate the different functions of the different tracts, so they arises within the spinal cord, they end within the spinal cord. They are totally localized to the spinal cord. These tracts are called the propriospinal tracts. So we have three different types of tract: the ascending tract, the descending tracts and the propriospinal tracts. So then the white matter of the spinal cord. In the previous class we have discussed the gray matter and the rexed lamination of the spinal cord. Now in this class we are discussing the white matter of the spinal cord. It consists of longitudinal bundles of the nerve fiber and it is divided into three columns. The anterior column which is present over here, then the lateral column which is present over here, and then the posterior column or dorsal column which is present over here. This one is the posterior median sulcus, the anterior median fissure, and this one is the anterior horn of the spinal cord. This is the posterior horn of the spinal cord, and in this area you can see the dorsal column. Here you can see the lateral column or lateral funiculus, and here over in this area you can see the anterior or ventral column or ventral funiculus. So in the previous class we have discussed about the gray matter of the spinal cord and the rexed lamination, and now in this class we are discussing the white matter. So we are having the different tract, the descending pathways and the ascending pathway. Descending pathway again divided into two: the one which are descending from the cerebral cortex, that is the lateral corticospinal tract, and the ventral or anterior corticospinal tract, carrying the these are the descending pathways. And then we are having the pathways which are descending from the brainstem. This one is the rubrospinal tract. Then we have the lateral reticulospinal tract, the medial reticulospinal tract, the ventral or anterior reticulospinal tract, and ventrolateral reticulospinal tract. So we are having four different reticulospinal tracts and name given according to location: the lateral one, the medial one, the ventral one, and ventrolateral. Near the the medial one we are having the medial longitudinal fasciculus and then the tectospinal tract. In between the ventrolateral and ventral reticulospinal tracts we are having the vestibulospinal tract. So these are the different descending tracts present in the lateral column and the anterior column of the spinal tract. Now we are looking at the ascending tracts of the spinal column. First of all, This one is the dorsal column, again divided into dorsal, the fasciculus gracilis, which one is the medial one, and the fasciculus cuneatus, which is the lateral one, both collectively called the dorsal column, which is present in the posterior funiculus. Then we are having the dorsal spinocerebellar tract and the ventral spinocerebellar tract. Then we are having the spinothalamic tract and the spinoreticcular fibers and the spino-olivary fiber. So this section of the spinal cord is taken at some higher level, that is the cervical level. Now this is the section of the spinal cord at lower level, and in this section we are looking only at the fasciculus gracilis because it is carrying the impulses from the lower part of the body, that is the lower limb. So here you can see the descending tracts, that is the lateral corticospinal tract and the ventral corticospinal tract, then the descending tracts from the brainstem, that is the tegmentospinal tract, the lateral reticulospinal tract, this one is the medial reticulospinal tract, then the ventrolateral and the ventral reticulospinal tracts. Here you can see the ventral corticospinal tract. Then the ascending tract is the fasciculus gracilis. Then we can have the fasciculus proprius. This is then we are having the ventral spinocerebellar, lateral spinothalamic and spinotectal tract, spino-olivary tract and the ventral spinothalamic tract. So these are the location of the different tracts which are present, which you can see in a cross section of the spinal cord at different levels. And now we discuss all of these different tracts in detail. So first of all, there must have some general information about the tracts, that they are having the first order neurons, then the second order neurons, and then the third order neuron. The only difference is the different locations where each order neuron ends. Decussation, what is decussation? It is crossing over of the tract from one side to the other. Therefore, there are instances where left side of the body is controlled by the right brain hemisphere because of the decussation of the tracts. Decussation occurs at different locations for each tract. So we have also to memorize the level of the decussation for each of the tract. Now the ascending tracts carry sensory signals to the spinal cord, typically uses 3 neurons. The first order detects stimuli and carries it to the spinal cord. These neurons are located in the dorsal root ganglia. Their cell body is located in the dorsal root ganglia. They are usually the pseudo-unipolar neurons. The peripheral process is present going to the periphery where it takes impulses from the receptors, and central process enter into the spinal cord via dorsal root. The second order neuron is present within either the spinal cord or in the thalamus, depending upon which of the tract we are studying. Then the third order neuron usually is present in the thalamus in case of the sensory region of the cerebral cortex. So in most of these cases, when we are discussing about the ascending tract, we are using the prefix spino for these tracts. So now we are we now discuss the dorsal column medial lemniscal system in detail, that is the ascending pathway. It carries the sensations related to the discriminative touch, the visceral pain, the vibration, and the proprioception. This is one of the modern tract which is present in the human beings, and the first order neuron usually detects the stimuli. They are present in the dorsal root ganglia. Here is the dorsal root ganglia. You can see in this slide their peripheral process carrying the impulses from the periphery, and the central process enter into the spinal cord, and then it descends ipsilateral up to the level of the medulla, where the second order neurons are located. There are generally 2 fasciculus in the dorsal column. The medial one is the fasciculus gracilis and lateral one is the fasciculus cuneatus. Usually fasciculus gracilis carrying the impulses below the level of the T6, and the fasciculus cuneatus carrying impulses T6 are higher levels. After ending into the nucleus cuneatus or fasciculus cuneatus, their second order neurons are present over here. Then they cross to the opposite side and ascend, and dorsal column and third order neurons are present usually into the ventroposterolateral nucleus of the thalamus, and then their axon enter into the somatosensory cortex. So this diagram is very important, and to understand this basically shows you the somatotopic arrangement of the fibers in the spinal cord. So first of all, you can see the red color fibers are carrying the impulses from the sacral area. Then the blue color fibers are carrying the impulses from the lumbar area. The sacral one are most medial than the lumbar one. As we ascend up to the thoracic level, the purple color fibers shows to the thoracic level, and they are entering over here, and then at the level of the cervical level of the spinal cord, the green color fibers are added. So red are the sacral, the most medial, then we are having the lumbar, then we are having the thoracic, and then the cervical fiber. So this is a somatotopic arrangement of the fiber, and this somatotopic arrangement is maintained. The fibers below the level of the T6 ascends through the fasciculus gracilis and in the nuclei gracile, and then through the internal arcuate fiber they have the decussation, that is the major sensory decussation, and then the fiber ascend as the medial lemniscus. Same is the case with the fasciculus cuneatus, and again remember this somatotopic arrangement is maintained over here. They enter into the ventroposterolateral nucleus of the thalamus, where the third order neurons originate, and then they send the sensory information to the somatosensory cortex. Again in the somatosensory cortex, in the next slide we will see the homunculus, where we will study that the somatotopic again somatotopic organization is maintained at this level also. So this is very important to memorize, because the lesions which are at different level will involve the different fibers. So when we will have the knowledge that the most medial are the sacral, then the lumbar, then the thoracic, and then the cervical. So in case the blood supply affected in the medial region, that will affect the fibers coming from the sacral and the lumbar areas. So this is very important to memorize, that the somatotopic arrangement of the fiber is maintained throughout the dorsal column. Now the high proportion of the myelinated fibers are carrying the proprioceptive information, that is the position sense and the kinesthesia. The exteroceptive information, that is the touch, the pressure, and the 2-point discrimination, and then the vibratory sensation. So these are the different sensations which are carried through the dorsal column. Then the different receptors which are involved in the dorsal column are, first of all, the Meissner corpuscles present in the skin, the dermis of the skin, and they are carrying the fine touch and 2-point discrimination. Then the free nerve ending present in epidermis, carrying the sensation of the fine touch. The Pacinian corpuscles present in dermis, they are carrying the pressure sense and the vibration. Then we are having the Rufinus corpuscles having the sensations of the vibration and 2-point discrimination. The Merkel's disc carrying sensations of fine touch, and then very important, the Golgi tendon organ and the muscle spindle fibers, both the extrafusal and the intrafusal, and these are carrying the impulses of the proprioception. So these are the very important, these are the different receptors which are present in different areas and carrying the different sensations to the dorsal column, to the dorsal root ganglia, where the cell body of the first order neuron is located. Know about different type of fibers which are involved to carry impulses from these receptors. So there are the 3 different types of the fiber, 3 different types of type A fibers which are present: type A alpha, type A beta, and type A delta. So type A alpha fibers for the muscle spindles and Golgi tendon organ. So these are both the extrafusal fibers as well as the intrafusal fibers, both the nuclear bag fibers and the nuclear chain fibers. They transmit their impulses through A alpha. Then A beta for all other receptors, and A delta carrying the sensations of the fast pain. These are the fastest of all, the fibers are fast of all. Then now we discuss the dorsal column. The fibers enter into the dorsal root ganglia. So the fasciculus cuneatus begins at caudal end of the spinal cord, enters through the dorsal root, and axons enter in lamina 4 to 6 of the ipsilateral horn. So please remember, this may be your MCQ as well, that these fibers enter into lamina 4 to lamina 6 of the ipsilateral horn. Then they enter into the dorsal column. They ascend ipsilaterally up to the level of the medulla. Here you can see in the medulla. Then they decussate to the opposite side. As second order neurons located in medulla decussate to opposite side and ascend as the medial lemniscus through the bones, through the midbrain, up to the level of the thalamus, where third order neurons are located into the ventroposterolateral nucleus of the thalamus, and then they transmit their information to the different areas. So this is the fasciculus gracilis. Then fasciculus gracilis into internal arcuate fibers. Here you can see I have told you decussate in major sensory decussation, ascend as medial lemniscus into VPL nucleus of thalamus, and then to somatosensory cortex. In the post-central gyrus, the area is 3, 1 and 2. Again your MCQ. Some neurons of the dorsal column via external arcuate fibers to the cerebellum as well. So this is again another MCQ as well. Then the fasciculus cuneatus begins at mid-thoracic level, that is at the C6 level, basically upper thoracic and cervical dorsal roots. Here you can see the cervical spinal cord, and this is the dorsal root ganglia, and these are the receptors carrying the proprioceptive information, the vibration and the fine touch. Ascends enter into lamina 4 to 6 of the spinal cord, the dorsal horn of the spinal cord. Then they ascend ipsilaterally as fasciculus cuneatus. Their second order neuron located in nuclei cuneatus. Then the internal arcuate fibers, major sensory decussation, medial lemniscus into upper part of the medulla, then the bones, then the midbrain into VPL nucleus, and then to the somatosensory cortex. So here you can see the fibers, the fasciculus cuneatus, its whole tract, and fibers enter into the somatosensory cortex, where it supplies the forearm and the hand area. So this is the homunculus, the cortical sensory homunculus. The different areas represented. This area is represented by the genitalia, then the toes, the foot, leg, then the area of the hip, the trunk, neck, head, shoulder, arm. Then you can see this is the area of the elbow, the forearm and the wrist. And a larger part of this cerebral cortex is being presented for the hand. So this is the hand, then the little finger, the ring finger, the middle finger, the index finger, and then the thumb. Then a large part presented by the eye, then the nose, face, lips, tongue, gum and jaws, and then the teeth, gums and jaws, and a larger area for the tongue, and this is the pharynx. So this is the cortical sensory homunculus, and here you can again see the somatotopy is maintained. The fibers from the lower area are present most medially, and then there is progressive their somatotopic arrangement of these fibers forming the cortical sensory homunculus. So again, another important point to memorize about the posterior column is that it is an ipsilateral pathway in the spinal cord. So ipsilateral loss of discriminative touch sensation and conscious proprioception below the level of the lesion. So whenever there will be a lesion in the spinal cord, there will be ipsilateral loss of touch sensation and conscious proprioception below that level of the lesion. So you must memorize this, that these fibers ascend ipsilateral till the medulla oblongata, where they decussate to opposite side, and then they ascend as the dorsal column. So this is your reference, that is the Gray's Anatomy by the Susan Stranding, the 40th edition. And thank you very much for your attention for today's class, and Allah Hafiz till the next class.